Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Hope you are fine and happy at your homes and also protected. Today I will continue the topic of diabetes. In previous lecture we discussed about the etiology, pathogenesis, types and diagnosis of diabetes. In this lecture we will discuss the management of diabetes and I will brief you regarding the management points of the diabetes. The management of diabetic patient is individualized one. Each patient is different and each patient has its own management plan depending on its weight, BMI and its comorbidities and also its lifestyle and also its other activities. Management of diabetic patients require different components. The major components of treatment of diabetic patients are diet and exercise, modification of lifestyle. Then, drugs are also important for management. Oral hypoglycemic agents, various types are available and I will discuss them later on. And along with oral drug therapy, insulin therapy is also required. Lifestyle modification includes regular exercise, good nutrition plan by dietitian, diet control to maintain blood pressure, specific micronutrient therapy, medications, oral hypoglycemic agents. Various categories are available and different type of medications are indicated in different patient groups. Sometimes surgery may be required, pancreatic transplantation, islet cell transplantation. In CKD patients, sometimes renal transplantation is also required and role of metabolic surgery is also very important. And it is a new type of treatment therapy for diabetic patients for the control of diabetes. Diet is a basic part of management in every case. Treatment cannot be effective unless adequate attention is given to ensuring appropriate nutrition. Dietary treatment should aim at ensuring weight control because increased weight increases the insulin resistance and also worsening of the hyperglycemia and increased requirement of the drugs. Providing nutritional requirement to maintain the smooth and balancing function of the body. Allowing good glycemic control with blood glucose level as close to normal as possible. And also diet should be like that it correct any associated blood lipid abnormality. The following principles are recommended as a dietary guidelines for people with diabetes. Different proportions of diet are taken in different amounts for a balanced diabetic diet. Dietary fat. They should provide 25 to 35% of total intake of calories, but saturated fat intake should not exceed 10% of the total energy. Saturated fats are that fats which we take from animal origin like desi ghee, margarine, butter, egg fat. These are all sources of saturated fat and they are not good fats. Cholesterol consumption should be restricted and limited to 300 mg or less daily. The second most important component of our food is protein. How much it should be taken? It can range between 10 to 15% total energy that it should not increase from 0.8 to 1 gram per kg of desirable body weight. Requirements increases for children and during pregnancy. Protein should be avoided in patients of chronic renal failure and the protein derived from both animal and vegetable sources should be taken. And other important component of our diet and in Pakistani diet, more carbohydrates are taken. It should provide 50 to 60% of total caloric content of the diet. Carbohydrates should be complex and they should be high in fiber because if we will take refined sugars, they will increase the blood sugar level very rapidly and this increase in the BSR and glycemic levels will reflect in the poor glycemic control. Therefore, the carbs with high complex and high fiber intake should be given to these patients. Then other important component of our diet is salt, micronutrients. Excessive salt intake is avoided in diabetic patient because it can precipitate hypertension, and it can also worsen the hypertension if it is already present in the patients, and also dangerous in patient of diabetic nephropathies. Physical activity, exercise is also an important step for the management of diabetes and control of glycemic levels. Physical activity promotes weight reduction and improves insulin sensitivity, thus lowering blood glucose levels. Together with dietary treatment, a program of regular physical activity and exercise should be considered for each person. Such a program must be tailored to the individual's health status and fitness. For cardiac patient, we will not advise excessive and heavy exercises, but we will advise mild activities and just simple walk. People should, however, be educated about the potential risk of hypoglycemia and how to avoid it, because it is very common in diabetic patients. If excessive exercise is taken without precautionary measures, it can result in hypoglycemia. Lifestyle modification with diet and exercise are cornerstone for the management of a diabetic patient. But in some patients, the BSR and glycemic levels are not well controlled with diet and exercise. So we have to add oral anti-diabetic agents in these patients. And there are different groups of oral anti-diabetic agents available, and most of them are bigonides, insulin secretagogues, alpha glucosidase inhibitors, TZDs, SGL2 inhibitors, and DPP4 inhibitors. Some important oral hypoglycemic drug groups, their names and brand names and also their mechanism of action is shown in this table, and I will discuss briefly regarding different medication groups. The most important group is bigonides, and drug name is metformin. It is available by brand name of glucophage, mostly and commonly used by diabetic patients in our country. Its mechanism of action is that it inhibits glucose production by the liver. It inhibits glucose production by liver by gluconeogenesis, and it also increases uptake of the glucose by muscles and cells. The second most important group is sulfonylurea, first generation and second generation. Nowadays, mostly second generation sulfonylureas are used. Glimepiride, known as by trade name or brand name of Emeril, glipizide, glyburide, these are also available and used in our diabetic patients. Their mechanism of action is that they increase insulin secretion by pancreatic beta cells. Then other important but less used group is baglatinides. The drug in this group are repaglinide and neticlinide, and their mechanism of action is that they increase insulin secretion by pancreatic beta cells. TCDs, thiazolidine diones. The important drug in this group are pioglitazone and rosiglitazone, but these drugs are also in less use. Their mechanism of action is that they increase glucose uptake by the skeletal muscles. Another important group is alpha glucosidase inhibitors, acarbose or imbiglatol. They inhibit the carbohydrate absorption in the small intestine. Mechanism of action of sulfonylurea. It is an important group of drug used for control of diabetes. Sulfonylurea receptors are present on the pancreatic beta cells. When these drugs are used, what does they do? They stimulate sulfonylurea receptors and causes the closure of ATP dependent potassium channels, and this causes depolarization. This depolarization causes increased intake or influx of the calcium inside the cells, and resulting in increased stimulation and release of insulin. And how insulin is released by the sulfonylurea groups, and therefore they are known as secretagogues of insulin. They increase the insulin secretion via sulfonylurea receptors present on the beta cells of the pancreatic Langerhans. Another important group is maglitinide analogs. They also work by the same mechanism, also act on the sulfonylurea receptors, and they cause closure of the ATP dependent potassium channels, and it result in depolarization wave, which result increased calcium influx inside the cells and causes secretion of the insulin. Therefore, these groups are known as the secretagogues, both groups, sulfonylurea groups and maglitinide groups. Sulfonylurea drugs have a longer duration of action, while maglitinide have a comparatively low and slow duration of action. Other important groups for the management of diabetic patients are GLP-1 receptor agonist and DPP-4 inhibitors. DPP-4 inhibitors are very important and most commonly used nowadays. DPP-4 inhibitors, it is the enzyme dipeptyl peptidase 4 inhibitors. It is an enzyme which destroys a group of GI hormones called incretin. Incretins help stimulate production of insulin when it is needed in response by eating a meal or oral glucose, and reduce production of glucagon by the liver when it is not needed. Therefore, these drugs inhibit these enzymes and increase the level of GLP-1, which in turn release insulin from the pancreatic beta cells. Then GLP-1 receptor agonist. It is a newer group of drug and it is an expensive one. It decreases the fasting hyperglycemia, while DPP-4 inhibitors decreases the postprandial hyperglycemia, the hyperglycemia which is due to the ingestion of food and sugar and not control. It will respond to DPP-4 inhibitors, while GLP-1 receptor agonist, they are used to reduce fasting hyperglycemia. Now, the treatment of patients with drugs is indicated when the glycemic levels are not controlled via exercise and diet alone. And the following are the recommendations for the addition of drugs in patients when the glycemic level are not controlled with lifestyle modification. If glycemic control is not achieved, HbA1c is more than 6.5% and fasting glucose is more than 126 mg, or random glucose level is more than 200 mg, with lifestyle modification within 1 to 3 months, then we have to start oral anti-diabetic agent and they should be initiated. In the presence of marked hyperglycemia in newly diagnosed symptomatic type 2 patients, in patients when the HbA1c is more than 8%, fasting plasma glucose is more than 200, or random plasma glucose is more than 250 mg, oral anti-diabetic agents can be considered at the outset together with the lifestyle modification. Now I will discuss how to start oral anti-diabetic medications in these patients. Oral agents monotherapy. How drugs are started and which drug is important for which specific subgroup of patients. As first line therapy, in obese type 2 diabetic patients, consider the use of metformin or acarbose or TZDs. The metformin is the first line of drugs in obese diabetic patients if contraindications are not there. In non-obese type 2 patient, consider the use of metformin or insulin secretagogues. Insulin secretagogues, as I mentioned in previous slides, are sulfonylureas and maglitinides. So, in obese type 2 patient, you will start with metformin, and in non-obese patient, you may start with insulin secretagogues and metformin. Metformin is the drug of choice in overweight obese patients. TZDs and acarbose are acceptable alternatives in those who are intolerant to the metformins. If monotherapy fails, a combination of TZDs, acarbose, and metformin is recommended. If targets are still not achieved, insulin secretagogues may be added. When the glycemic levels are not controlled by a single agent, we have to combine different groups of medication. Combination of oral agent is indicated in newly diagnosed symptomatic patients with HbA1c is more than 10 or patients who are not reaching targets after 3 months of monotherapy. Then in these patients we have to add or combine different group of medication to achieve our target glycemic levels. But if a new diagnosed symptomatic patient with HbA1c more than 10, we can start combination of drugs in this patient directly. In some conditions, the glycemic levels are not controlled by a combination of different oral agents. Then we have to add insulin in their regimes. If target have not been reached after optimal dose of combination therapy for 3 months, consider adding intermediate acting or long acting insulin. Combination of insulin plus oral antidiabetic agents has been shown to improve glycemic control in those not achieving target despite maximal combination of oral antidiabetic agents. Therefore, insulin is required for control of diabetes in these patients. Combining insulin and following oral antidiabetic agents has been shown to be effective in people with type 2 diabetes. Biguanides most commonly used drug is metformin, insulin secretagogue are sulfonylureas and maglitidine groups. Among them, the drugs are Deonil, Almiril. These are also known as short-acting or new generation sulfonylureas. Then alpha glucosidase inhibitors and also DTP4 inhibitors. They are used in combination with insulin. Insulin dose can be increased until target fasting plasma glucose is achieved. This is the algorithm for the management of diabetic patients. For each diabetic type 2 patient, we will advise diet and physical activity. And if the patient is asymptomatic and the glycemic levels are not too much raised, we will advise diet and physical activity for 1 to 3 months. And some patients will succeed and will achieve their target levels. But some patients, if they are symptomatic and HbA1c is more than 8%, fasting plasma levels are more than 11.1 and random plasma glucose is more than 14 millimole, then we will start medication at presentation and we will start with monotherapy. And we will categorize these patients into obese and non-obese. In overweight obese patient, we will start metformin and we can add acarbose and TZDs among them. If the patient is non-obese, we can start metformin or insulin secretagogues that are sulfonylureas and maglitidine. Combination of oral diabetic agent therapy should be considered at the onset in patients with HbA1c more than 10%. If the HbA1c at presentation is more than 10%, then we can start combination of oral diabetic agents. If all these drugs fail, then the next step is metformin plus acarbose plus TZDs and we have to add insulin secretagogue. And some patients diet, physical activity and compliance must be emphasized at all levels, and we have to start at this level for the screening of complications because these are those patients in which the glycemic levels are compromised and HbA1c are not controlled and targets of glycemia are not optimal, so they should be screened for complications. And if the all treatment plans fail at this stage, we have to start or add insulin and insulin sensitizers in these patients. Then there are some general guidelines for use of these oral anti-diabetic agents in diabetic patients. In elderly non-obese patients, short-acting insulin secretagogue can be started, but long-acting sulfonylureas like Dionil should be avoided because their duration of action is long and there are increased chances of hypoglycemia. Especially renal function should be monitored because the action of these drugs is prolonged in case of impending renal failure. Oral antidiabetic agents are usually not recommended for diabetes in pregnancy, but metformin is used safely, and different research trials have shown its safety, but other drugs are usually not recommended. Metformin is used safely in pregnancies by different trials. Oral antidiabetic agents are usually not the first line therapy in diabetes diagnosed during stress, such as infection, and we have to start with insulin therapy in these patients. Targets for control are applicable for all age groups, but few age groups and some conditions are exceptional, like old age and in case patients of comorbidities, targets are individualized and targets are somewhat relaxed in these age groups. And HbA1c less than or up till 7 is not desirable in these age groups. We can relax HbA1c level from 7 to 8 in these patients. When indicated, start with a minimal dose of oral antidiabetic agents while re emphasizing diet and physical activity. An appropriate duration of time, 2 to 16 weeks depending on agent used, between increments should be given to allow achievement of steady state blood glucose control among the patients. Now I will brief you regarding insulin therapy. There are different indications for insulin treatment. Short-term uses and long-term uses of insulin are present. Short-term uses: acute illness, surgery, stress and emergencies. Only the short-term use of insulin is required in these patients. Pregnancy, breastfeeding, insulin may be used as initial therapy in type 2 diabetes in the patients when the HbA1c is more than 10 and they are symptomatic. In marked hyperglycemia, severe metabolic decompensation like diabetic ketoacidosis, hyperosmolar non-ketotic coma, lactic acidosis, severe hypertriglyceridemias. The long-term uses are: if target have not been reached after optimal doses of combination therapy, we should consider change to multi-dose insulin therapy. When initiating this, insulin secretagogues should be stopped and insulin sensitizers like metformin or TZDs can be continued. Actions of insulin. How does this insulin act? It helps in transportation of glucose across the cell membrane. Different transporters are present in the cell membrane. Insulin activate type 4 glucose transporters present, and as a result of the glucose transportation occurs across the cells. It helps in the formation of the glycogen by activating the enzyme glycogen synthase enzyme. It converts glucose into the glycogen. Another important action is that it inhibits the phosphorylase enzyme which converts the glycogen into the glucose, and it inhibits the enzyme phosphorylase and it inhibits the conversion of the glycogen into the glucose. By these action, it control the glycemia and maintain the glycemic levels in the blood. Again, the diagrammatic representation of the mechanism of action of insulin. There are different receptors and transporters are present on the cell membrane. The insulin receptors stimulate the transporters, glucose transporters type 4s, and they causes the entry of the glucose in the cell and glucose utilization by the cell and control of the increased blood sugar level in the blood, and it causes the entry of the glucose via the glucose transport 4 receptors in the cell and causes the utilization of the glucose, and it controls the level of glucose in the blood. Different type of regimes and insulin combination treatments are available. The majority of patients will require more than one daily injection if good glycemic control is to be achieved. However, a once daily injection of an intermediate acting preparation may be effectively used in some patients. Twice daily mixtures of short and intermediate acting insulin is a commonly used regime. In some cases, a mixture of short and intermediate acting insulin may be given in the morning. Further doses of short acting insulin are given before lunch and the evening meal, and an evening dose of intermediate acting insulin is given at bedtime. Other regimes based on the same principles may be used. A regime of multiple injections of short acting insulin before the main meals with an appropriate dose of intermediate acting insulin given at bedtime may be used, particularly when strict glycemic control is mandatory. This is a very informative table for the types of insulin. It will show the types of insulin, their brand names, whether they should be given as a bolus or basal, or what is their dosing schedule when this type of insulin should be given. As I have mentioned earlier, there are three types of insulin: regular, intermediate acting, and long acting. The regular insulins are again divided into rapid acting or ultra short acting, and then short acting. Rapid acting analogs are clear solutions. Onset is 10 to 15 minutes and the peak action occurs within 60 to 90 minutes. Duration is 4 to 5 hours. Their brand names are Humalog, known as insulin Lispro, and Novorapid insulin Aspart. They are given as bolus. Bolus means that they cover the carbohydrate meal portion in the food, and they are given to compensate and utilize the glucose and carbohydrate component which is present in the meal, and they are usually taken right before the eating because they are rapid acting and ultra short acting. Their advantage is that they can be taken right before eating or to lower the high blood sugar levels. Then other group is short acting. They are also clear and regular insulins. The onset of action is from 30 minutes to 1 hour, peak 2 to 4 hours, and duration of action is 5 to 8 hours. They are available as Humulin R and Novolin. They are also given as bolus, that is, they decrease the meal portion of carbohydrates. They should be taken about 30 minutes before eating or to lower the high blood glucose level. They are taken 30 minutes before meal. Then another important group is intermediate acting. The solution of these insulin is cloudy one. The solution will not be clear. In rapid acting and short acting insulin, the solution of the insulin in vial will be clear, while in case of intermediate acting insulin, it will be cloudy. Onset is 1 to 3 hours, peak within 4 to 8 hours, and duration of action up to 18 hours. They are taken as basal insulin. They are taken as basal, not as bolus, because these are insulin which are required to meet the needs of the basal metabolic rate of the body, often taken at bedtime or twice a day, morning or at bedtime. Then extending long acting analogs. Analogs are also available. Lentus or available as Glargine, and Levemir available as Detimir. They are also taken as basal insulin, usually taken once or twice a day. Then there are different pre-mixed preparation of the insulin, and they are cloudy. Thank you so much, dear students, for kind listening. It was very brief introduction regarding management of diabetes. In higher grades, you will learn more regarding management plans. Thank you so much.